What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. My, oh my, it may be Sunday. It may be a hot, sunny Sunday here in the UK. It may be the day after the Champions League final. We're still all upset and depressed about Manchester City achieving the treble. But there is breaking takeover news because finally, maybe this takeover saga truly maybe is in the end game. I know what you're saying. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm there with you, but some breaking news coming in the last couple of minutes regarding a takeover decision on exclusivity expected this coming week. Yes, within the next 7 days, hopefully an exclusivity decision will be made by the Glazers because Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, his 9-2 foundation, in addition to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his INEOS group, are finalising details with the Rain Group. The merchant bankers, of course, facilitating the sale of Manchester United. A decision is expected, hopefully, within the next 7 days. Mike Keegan dropping a big Daily Mail report in the last few minutes. In addition to that, the Times are also reporting the same bit of news, so it's being corroborated by two big sources. Plus, we may have more details on Sheikh Jassim's latest bid, and in the actuality that has actually got risen. I'll do good grammar soon. I'll use good grammar soon. I'm all flustered. We've got more details on actually how much has been possibly offered by Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani, and reportedly it's a lot closer to the valuation of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS's bid as well. So fascinating stuff. Strap in, because we've got a lot to talk about over the next hour. As I mentioned, we're going to be going through the articles, we're going to be going through the tweets, through the reports, through the discussion, through the rumours, as well as anything that happens whilst we're live as well. And you know me, you know us guys, honestly. Every time I've been live with you guys solo regarding takeover news happening and then going live pretty quickly, stuff continues to happen, okay? And stuff continues to get put out there and reported, and it feels like maybe, hopefully, we might be getting somewhere when it comes to the takeover of Manchester United. Maybe. I say maybe because, honestly, you never know as well. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the live chat. I can get your comments up on the screen as well. Dave Worrell says, so literally nothing to report here then. Well, I disagree, Dave. Because Mike Keegan, who's been all over this story, is saying that, again, the preferred party is set to be chosen this week. I know we've heard that before, but certainly it is worth talking about as well, in addition to the Times saying it too. So, again, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Remember, you can join the UV Members Club. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat as well. Let's start off with Mike Keegan. He was the first to break this story. Then we'll go into what the Times are saying as well, but he is reporting, certainly again, that Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe are in discussions or finalising their details with the Rain Group, as well as we could get a final decision on exclusivity, basically, possibly, who's going to be the new Manchester United owners this week. So, according to Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail, he has said that both bidders in the battle for Manchester United are finalising deal details with the club sellers, with a long-awaited decision on exclusivity finally expected later this week. According to Mike Keegan, lawyers representing Qatari Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani and British petrochemicals billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe are in dialogue with the Rain Group, the US merchant bank managing the process. Ratcliffe's INEOS outfit had appeared to have nosed in front, but Mail Sport understands that those acting on behalf of Sheikh Jassim, who at one stage had thought they had lost, now feel they're very much in the game following the dramatic submission of an improved offer this week. That in itself is very significant there. Obviously, all of I've just said, and we've barely scratched the surface there, is significant that there's an expectation that we are going to get an update on exclusivity this week. But really, that last paragraph is significant. I'll say it once again. Ratcliffe's INEOS outfit had appeared to have nosed in front, but Mail Sport understands that those acting on behalf of Sheikh Jassim, who at one stage had thought they had lost, now feel they are very much in the game following the dramatic submission of an improved offer last week. Now, you could say, why? Why do you feel you're very much in the game? Is it because of this new bid, or is it because of the feedback possibly you received about this new bid? So for all of those reports suggesting that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, INEOS, they were in the lead, well, and that's the 9-2 foundation feeling, we've lost, we've screwed this up, we're getting frustrated. Now they feel that it's a very close and even contest. Why, you may add? Because we've got more details on how much that bid from Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani could indeed be worth. It continues by saying each side is hoping to learn over the coming days which has been chosen by the Glazer family as the preferred bidder ahead of the completion of the sale of the Premier League giants. Ratcliffe's people had been in advanced talks with Reign for a number of weeks, but insiders have disclosed there was something of a breakthrough with their rivals who, as was revealed previously, had set a Friday deadline for a withdrawal of engagement in the process along with their fifth and final bid should they not receive a response. So once again, these talks between Ineos and the Reign group had been going on. They'd been in advanced talks. There were the reports suggesting that they felt they were a couple of weeks away from getting the deal done. They were a couple of weeks away from finishing this thing off, and they certainly felt like they were in pole position. They were leading, but insiders are now suggesting there has been a breakthrough with the 9-2 Foundation. Now, that's not to say that they've got ahead of Ineos. That's not to say that they're going to win and Sheikh Jassim is going to be the new owner of Manchester United, but certainly if we're saying that Ineos were here in terms of getting it done and the 9-2 Foundation were there, it's risen. And now it's very close. It's neck and neck. And we're very much in the final stretch as well. And we may have a photo finish when it comes to this, but seemingly we are getting somewhere. The deadline, of course, for Sheikh Jassim, that offer, that's passed in terms of the engagement. That new bid, the fifth bid, was made directly to the Glazers and to Reign, and that remains on the table. Sheikh Jassim's bid, which is believed to be around the £5 billion mark, comes with the promise of an additional £1 billion in investment, is for total control of United. Again, not that billion of investment actually matters as well. The offer from Ratcliffe's Ineos is for around 60% and comes with a proposal that would allow members of the Glazer family, unpopular with large sections of United support, that's an effing understatement, to remain for a set time period ahead of a sourced buyout. While the initial outlay would be significantly less, the Ineos bid is thought to value the club at slightly higher. So once again, the Glazers now have a decision to make. They say, okay, Sheikh Jassim has improved his bid. Reportedly, it is closer to the overall valuation of Manchester United, because that's the key thing here, because in terms of money being put on the table, Sheikh Jassim is putting more money on the table right now, but in terms of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the long-term future, he might actually be technically be putting more money on the table in the long term because of a source buyout. So we now have two offers that roughly value Manchester United at the same price, and the Glazers have a decision to make. Do they want all of the money now, or do they want some of the money and then possibly a bit more in the future, and do they want to stay? As I mentioned, according to Mike Keegan, the gap between the two offers, however, is thought to have narrowed, and the Qataris feel that the decision now rests purely on whether the Glazers, who have plunged United into debt since their leverage buyout in 2005, want to sell up or stay in some capacity. So once again, that's very significant as well. The Qataris feel, and Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation feel, now it's just up to the Glazers. How much do you want to sell up? And what's this process been all for? Are you literally determined sellers? Or with all of those reports that have been saying, oh, they will sell at the right price and they're open to selling at the right price, do you want to sell? Is that actually what you want to do? Because the money's on the table, the offer is as good as it's going to get for 100%, as Marcel would say, of Manchester United, or do you want to stay? Do you still want to have some involvement? Do you still want to have some control over Manchester United? Do you just want some money and not all of it right now, and then eventually you can get bought out over time? What do you really want to do? The ball is now firmly in the court of the Glazers, and they have a decision to make, and reportedly, they might be making a decision this week. Now, that last bit, I am very skeptical about, because these are the same reporters and journalists that say this was going to get done by Easter. Easter came and went. This was going to be done after the third and final round of bids. That came and went. We're on to fifth bids at this point, so I'm sorry if I'm a little bit skeptical about hearing something this coming week. But on the flip side of it, we have been saying throughout this process over the last 7 days, certainly, Flex, myself, KG, Marcel, Minna, whoever's commented on it really, that it does feel like, doesn't it, that something is happening. Something is happening, and maybe we are in the end game. It's a game that's gone on way too long, and far too long, and frankly ridiculously too long, and has turned into a debacle at times. That's also featured accusations of the PSG president getting involved as well, and him having to come out and deny that he's part of a bid, and all this kind of stuff. It's just got absolutely farcical. It's become a joke. particularly when you watch what happened last night in Istanbul with our city rivals achieving our greatest achievements. That's kind of just the final knife in the back of Manchester United. But that's the lasting legacy of our owners. And I, frankly, obviously I wanted to get it done this week. But if it meant waiting 3 more weeks and then being out the club completely, I wouldn't care. But the fact that maybe there is some light at the end of this very long tunnel is very exciting. But again, I'm still skeptical about all of that. Now, as I mentioned, when it comes to Nasir Alkalafi, and I do see some of your super chats, we will get to those in just a second. A month ago, the Glazers contacted Nasir Alkalafi, the president of Qatari-owned Paris Saint-Germain, to enlist his help in asking Sheikh Jassim to raise his bid. There has been frustration amid some of those involved that the sale process, which began in November, yes, 7 months ago, November, is yet to conclude, with the transfer window to open on Wednesday. That frustration is thought to be shared inside Old Trafford with staff and officials keen for a resolution, but hopefully that resolution could come this week. So again, if you are just joining us, reports are suggesting, Jassim Fabrizio Romano's tweeted as well about David Raya. Shit. About also breaking news regarding David Raya and Spurs. This is an exclusive from Fabrizio Romano. He is saying that Tottenham are now on the verge of reaching an agreement with David Raya on personal terms. Long-term contract almost agreed after positive talks. Raya open to Spurs move, but club-to-club talks will be crucial. £40 million fee asked by Brentford considered too high. Well, David Raya looks like he may be on his way to Spurs, or he's at least agreed personal terms with Spurs as well. That's breaking in the last couple of minutes. Again, we're talking about takeover stuff. We're talking about David Raya coming into Spurs possibly, and that being agreed to. But in terms of a price, that hasn't been done. That's just another example of why this takeover decision regarding exclusivity, regardless of really who it is, whether it is Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani and the 9-2 Foundation, or if it is Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, this needs to get done. This needs to conclude, this needs to be over, and Manchester United need to move on into whatever the next chapter is of their existence. Whether it is a chapter that's debt-free and a new owner of 100% of the club, or a new chapter where there's a new majority shareholder and the Glazers are still around. Maybe that's not the chapter that the majority or a lot of people are looking for. I don't know. You can make up that decision for yourself. But United need to move on. Last night was a dark day in Manchester United's history, and it just served to me as a reminder of how far we've fallen, how far behind we are. Now today, I see people kind of point scoring about the treble, saying 115 charges, they cheated. I know they did, everyone knows they did, but it still happened. The fact that we even have to have a debate now to say which treble is better makes me sick as a United fan. That should be ours. Man City shouldn't be winning the treble because we should be doing it over and over again. We should be winning the trophies that they're winning. We should be competing with Man City, and we're not. So the fact that we even have to have that discussion of which one's better, again, makes me physically ill. So we need to move on. We need to get these owners out of the club, or at the very least, very, very least. And again, it's not my preferred option that they don't have the control that they have right now. But we need to move on to the next chapter, and we need to invest in the stadium, invest in the training ground, invest in the academy. We need to invest in the team. We need to invest in our manager. We need to back our manager. We need to develop. We are stuck in a standstill. Manchester United, frankly, has been cryogenically frozen for nearly 2 decades, and enough is enough about it. And with David Raya, look, maybe he does go to Spurs. And that would be another frustration because, again, he's a goalkeeper that's available. But if you got Diogo Costa, or frankly, if we just get this takeover sorted step by step, step at a time. Let's not try and, run before we're barely walking at this point. But certainly it's significant news when it comes to the takeover this afternoon. We're going to get into what the Times are just saying in a second, but I do want to get to your super chats too. Here we go. I can get them up on the screen. Spiky Mikey says, class of 92 versus class of 115 charges. Our treble. And again, as a United fan, whenever we have this debate now, because we are going to have this debate because it happens, of course we're going to back our treble over theirs. We're going to say ours was filled with academy talent, the manner in which we did it, the period of time that we did it as well. People forget during that period of time, Champions League finals were midweek, and then we would play a game the following weekend as well. So certainly I would consider it to be more impressive, but at the same time, the fact we even have to have the discussion about which one is better, that shouldn't happen. That should not happen. when you see where City have come from to where they are right now and where United were at that time and where we are right now, that shouldn't happen. That's what happens when you have 2 decades of mismanagement. That's what happens when instead of putting money into the club, you take it out. That's what happened when you let bankers run Manchester United. That's what happens when you don't care about success. All you care about is profit and loss. And remember, the only reason the Glazers are even exploring strategic alternatives right now, the only reason the Glazers are selling right now is because they've come to a point of no return. They themselves can't afford to put money into the stadium. They themselves can't afford to put money in the training ground. They themselves don't want to put money into the club, don't want to put money into the academy. And I find the nerve of them trying to overcharge for United as well and start talking about the potential that this club has is actually, again, that's another thing that sickens me. Because as a buyer, a prospective buyer, wouldn't you be saying to them, well, if this club has got so much potential, why aren't you doing anything with them? And their response is that costs too much money and we can't be bothered and we don't care. We care, the fans care. Watching that last night, I really cared. And again, I know that people can talk about charges and all that kind of stuff. The fact that we even have to have that debate, honestly, is sickening. Caleb with the super chat says, Owen, if it was Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the deal would have been done with the Qatari flag. Well, look, we're going to find out where this is going, hopefully, in the next week or so. I would hope it's within the next 7 days. I do think there is something in the fact that, as Mike Keegan was saying in his reporting, that Ineos felt that they were getting somewhere. They felt they were ahead of the 9-2 Foundation. In addition to that, they also had been in talks with Reign for a while. But as we've constantly been saying, their bid really hasn't changed all that much over a long period of time. It's become for less. You know, I think initially it was for 69% of United, which is the majority shareholding that the Glazers have. Then it became 51 or 60, like the percentages have changed, but really the amount that's put down hasn't really changed that much at all. And if the Glazers were really happy and wanted to stay, to your point, why wouldn't they have just accepted this already? Why would they be calling up Nasir Alkalafi and trying to convince his friend to put more money in? If I was Ineos, I'd be looking at that saying, that to me says that they are purely money driven, and they decided a long time ago that they knew there was only one person could really truly give them the money and the quantity of money that they're looking for, and that is Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation. And maybe it's got to the point where they have to say, we ain't going to get that 6 billion quid that we're looking for, but now we've got a decision to make. What do we want? Do we want to stick around or not? And I would think, given the circumstances, they would say no, because they are so obsessed with money and control that them sticking around in a minority controlling situation, I can't see that. Red Baron with the super chat says, seen Pep trying to force cheers from the fans last night. Embarrassing, you need to get pumped for a Champions League final. Feels odd for a treble. And M. Sati says, it's amazing that Southampton arguably stopped a City quadruple and got relegated. I saw something with the Carabao Cup Twitter account sort of saying the one that got away, and I was just like, oh. Honestly, like I said, that whole situation just absolutely makes me sick as well. We've got nearly over 1,800 people watching, 206 likes. Be sure to click the like button if you haven't already. If today isn't worth a like, I don't know what is. So let's see if we can get to 500 likes early, and then anything is possible as we move through this afternoon show, or this morning show, or this evening show, depending on where you are in the world as well. So let me know where you're watching from, as always. Now, as I mentioned, it's not just from the Daily Mail, from Mike Keegan, who is reporting this news regarding essentially, hopefully, a decision being made regarding the Manchester United takeover within the next 7 days or so, or this coming week. The Times are also reporting essentially the same thing. The Times are saying that Ineos have been in advanced talk with the Reign Group, prompting the Qataris to believe they had lost, as I mentioned. However, there has been a renewed sense of optimism within the past 72 hours, fueled by dialogue with the Glazers and their representatives towards the end of the week, which again is significant because previously we had heard reports that the 9-2 Foundation and, well, not really Sheikh Jassim because he's not really participated in terms of the direct negotiations in this. So let's say the representatives of Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation, we had heard earlier this week that they hadn't really been in much contact with United and hadn't been in much contact with the Glazers or the Rain Group for that matter. Meanwhile, Ineos were. They were in deep conversations, they were in deep talks, and there was optimism on that side. And on the other side of things, there was frustration, and with that fifth bid, maybe desperation too. But that's, according to this new reporting, possibly changing. There is a renewed sense of optimism in the past 72 hours, and that optimism isn't coming out of nowhere. That's coming from dialogue with the Glazers themselves and their representatives towards the end of this week. So not only is there a feeling that, again, we're going to have this decision within the next 7 days, but Sheikh Jassim and his camp seemingly too are also saying, well, they're talking to us now, and based on these talks, we feel like we're pretty close too. Which, again, from their point of view, and if you're a proponent of the Sheikh Jassim bid, would be seen as positive news as well. And you can get really cynical now. Let's get cynical. Let's get the tinfoil hat on. When it comes to the reporting about Nasir Alkalafi over the last few days, which we've spoken about here extensively on the channel. Flex and myself have done quite a few videos or live streams on it as well. I did say at the time, like, it felt odd because it felt like a story that actually, when you break it down and you look at the details of it, it was a month ago. Al-Khalafi declined actually to be a middleman. By all accounts, they said, it didn't even work that convincing. Even though that Sheikh Jassim did put in a fifth bid, it felt like actually a bit of a non-story. When you really looked at it, it felt like it was a I don't know, it's a bit of a dog whistle, if you will. I don't know. When I looked more and more at that story, I went, well, he's come out publicly and said, well, people call me all the time. And yeah, I know Sheikh Jassim. I'm Qatari. I'm a senior figure in Qatari sport. I'm not only the president of PSG, he's part of that European, was it clubs, UEFA club, is it the ECB? Is that what it's called? I forget what it's called. But he's part of that as well. And he says, people ask me for my advice all the time. That doesn't mean I'm bidding for Manchester United. Of course he would ask my advice. Why wouldn't he ask my advice? But lots of people use that to sort of, don't know, suggest this sort of air of, a nefarious quality around the bid from Sheikh Jassim. And if you want to look at it now, to what's going on today, where there's a renewed optimism surrounding Sheikh Jassim's bid, don't think that, as I mentioned, people have signed non-DAs, but don't think people aren't saying certain things to certain outlets to try and, again, manipulate the bidding process to their desire and advantage too. That's what it kind of felt like as well. So I think that's very interesting. Very, very interesting too. It continues from the Times, as I mentioned, saying that Ratcliffe had initially submitted an offer for the 69% stake of Manchester United held by the Glazers. Now that figure is understood to be closer to 60%, with an opportunity for the Glazers to retain a stake as a means of investment. Ratcliffe's overall valuation of Manchester United being higher is what established him and Ineos as favourites. However, an increased bid by the Qataris is now believed to be nearer the overall Ratcliffe valuation, which I said is really the key thing here, I think, involved in all of this. Not only is the key thing that they're suggesting that we are going to get closer to a decision being made this week, or a decision rather is going to be made in terms of exclusivity this coming week, but also as well, as mentioned, it's this renewed optimism from the 9-2 Foundation, and that optimism stems from not only talks with the Glazers, but also this fifth bid is much closer to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's valuation. And if it's closer to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's valuation, that would actually suggest this could be closer to that £6 billion mark, because we do know that that's what the Glazers want. The Glazers want £6 billion for Manchester United. That's what they're looking for. Now, we know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe hasn't offered £6 billion. We know he hasn't, but what we do know is that his overall valuation is closer to £6 billion, i.e. he's offered for, as mentioned, I think it's 60, maybe 50, something like that. So let's say it's £3 billion for 50%. That would value Manchester United at £6 billion. So therefore, because of that, Ineos were deemed as the favourites because they were closer to what the Glazers were looking for overall. Then, in addition to that, there were those, I always forget what they're called. those put and call, is that what they're called? Something and call clauses about eventually having a source buyout over time of the remainder of the Glazers' shares. But this new reporting from the Times is suggesting that now Sheikh Jassim's new bid, this fifth bid for 100% of United, might actually be a lot closer to the Ratcliffes valuation, which would suggest it's closer to that £6 billion mark, which is the mark that the Glazers are looking for. And as we've spoken about previously too, there has to be this feeling in the back of the Glazers' minds that we're probably never going to get 6 billion. We're probably never going to get the 6 billion quid that we're looking for. And there has been a range quoted before, hasn't there, that they'd be willing to sell for as low. Didn't they say, is it 5, 5.2, 5.5, something like that? So again, if they're suggesting that this is closer to the Ratcliffes valuation, that would also suggest that this fifth bid may possibly fall into the lower end, the lower range of what the Glazers were looking for Manchester United in the first place. Which again, if that is accurate, if that reporting from the Times is accurate, as well as what Mike Keegan is saying, then we're now into the territory where both bids aren't the same, but they both technically offer what the Glazers are looking for, or overall what they could be looking for. And it's just a decision that the Glazers, Joel Abram and the rest of his siblings have to make, which is, do they want to be involved or don't they want to be involved? Do they want to sell or don't they want to sell completely? If they want to be 100% out of Manchester United, then they go to Sheikh Jassim. Plus, you could argue they make business links for other investments in the future in Qatar, which would certainly benefit the siblings and the family as well. Or, if they want to stick around, they go with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and they go with Ineos. That's the decision that they have to make right now. As I mentioned, and it's quite interesting actually, because Mike Keegan and the Times article essentially quoting the same thing as well, saying that the Qataris believe a final decision simply comes down to whether the Glazers want to maintain some involvement in Manchester United. Do they want anything to do with the club anymore? Now, obviously, we don't. We want them to have nothing to do with Manchester United anymore. Again, the fact that the people that, in my opinion, are directly responsible for not only putting Manchester United in the shape that they're in, a state of disrepair, stadium, training ground, whatever, our reputation being muddied and sullied throughout all of the years. On top of that, they're the people that, in my opinion, that are directly responsible for what we saw in Turkey yesterday with Manchester City. That's on them. It really, truly is. That is on them. That is the result of their mismanagement over 2 decades. And again, I don't even look at City. I think you have to look at yourselves. You have to look at your club. That's on them. And I don't want them to have any involvement in Manchester United for what they've done and for what they've done to this club and for what they've allowed our rivals to be able to do. Because it's not just Man City too. It's Liverpool as well. Under their watch, not only has Manchester City equalled our greatest accomplishment in terms of a treble, but also our other rivals like Liverpool won the Premier League for the first time in 30 years. The rise of Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, that's on them too. Last year, we mocked them for saying, quadruple, the greatest team ever assembled. We got away with one last year. We did this, as I said yesterday, what happened with Man City, that was always coming under the Glazers' ownership. That was always going to happen. Because you can't get away with it forever. And that's the case with the Glazers and their management, or mismanagement rather, of Manchester United too. Now again, just in terms of, let me just double check if anything else has been put out there as well. Yeah, I think I'm up to date with that. But as I mentioned, if anything more happens, we will be live for the next 30 more minutes or so. So click the like button if you haven't already. I believe VK might have done a madness. I believe. Indeed he has. Big up VK, long-time supporter, moderator of the channel. Has gifted 10, not 5, 10, the perfect 10. 10 United of You memberships have gone out from VK. Big up VK. Let's see if I scroll up a little bit, do I see all the new members? I can't see them on my list. Apologies. But welcome to all of those 10 new members gifted by VK there as well. Let's see what you're saying here in the chat. Let's see if I can get up actually a couple of your members, the members chats as well. Splashing up with the Booker T emoji. 5 times 2. Good maths. I like that. Brush says, like, share, and subscribe. Certainly, that's true as well. If you haven't already, click that like button. We got, as I mentioned, over 1,900 people watching. Only 150 likes to go to 500. So if you haven't already, click that like button. Let's see if we can get it to 500. In addition to that, you can see, top right-hand corner, the live subscriber count. So if you haven't already, subscribe bottom right-hand corner. As you do that, you'll see the ticker keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. So you can see that your subscription really does matter and really does count towards the road to what we're saying 150. That's the next big milestone, isn't it? A United View, 150 subscribers, 150,000 150,000 subscribers. Red Baron with a super chat says, Premier League needs to take some accountability on the regulations, Owen. It's all right saying look at yourself, but cheaters do exist and they need to be regulated. Of course they do. But in terms of having any faith in that system, I think if you put any faith in the Premier League, UEFA and FIFA to resolve cheating or financial doping, whatever you want to call it, however you want to dress it up, then I think you're going to be severely disappointed. There's no evidence of UEFA or FIFA or the Premier League being able to resolve any of these issues, apart from if it's an EFL club, then they slap an embargo on them very quickly or points deductions on that. But when we're talking big money, big clubs, I have no faith in the Premier League or UEFA or FIFA to regulate that. I don't. I really, really don't. And that's why I also then say that you have to start looking at yourselves too, and try and find a way to compete with that. I know you can't compete with it, especially with cheaters, but I think that I think us United fans just sitting there saying 115, 115. Yes, it's right, and yes, it's a valid thing to say, but at the same time too, it doesn't change what happened yesterday. It doesn't. We need to fix ourselves too. And as I mentioned, I have no faith in the Premier League or UEFA or FIFA to resolve any of that because they can't, or the FA. They can't. Or they won't. They won't in this case. Because whilst we all talk about 115 too, does anyone in the chat really genuinely expect City to actually get punished? I actually would be staggered. You have to remember as well, City have won a Champions League this season. Were they even meant to be in the competition? I don't think they were. Was this meant to be one of the seasons that they were suspended from the Champions League or banned from it? And not only did they participate, they won as well. If that doesn't say about UEFA's ability to regulate, I mean, that is the perfect example of it. So I think it's laughable. I think it's laughable with all that's going on there too. What else are people saying in the chat too? Marlon Clark says smaller clubs get punished swiftly for their wrongdoing, but City still nothing. Come on now. And also as well, it's not just City too. I mean, Everton also have the charge against them from the Premier League too, and lots of people were talking about them, saying, "Is there any update on that?" Nope, nothing. So I think again, I don't expect the Premier League to resolve that or regulate that because I think they're completely incompetent, honestly. And also from the City fans' point of view, they won't care. I use the example of Marseille. Marseille won the Champions League. I believe they won Liga 2, and they got what did they get found guilty of in the end? Was it corruption, something like that? And I think their titles got stripped from them. They don't care. they don't care. It still happened. It's ridiculous. Luxil says, I think you're thinking about Real, Barca and Juve. They were supposed to be banned. City pulled out with us in the Super League. I believe what I was referring to is, again, this was in 2019? 2018? I forget when it was, but City were provisionally banned from the Champions League, weren't they? And then that got turned into a suspended ban instead. I don't know if that was for this year's Champions League, but my point being is they've been found guilty by UEFA previously and were going to be banned from the Champions League, and then they weren't. So again, I think that's my point with them, is that they've got away with it before. So Marcus says City has better lawyers than smaller clubs. Well, certainly they've got not only better ones, they've got huge lawyers as well. Nas says Pickford links, Owen. Oh my God. Yeah, we did talk about that yesterday whilst I was live yesterday evening. Because that was coming from TalkSport. I really hope that's not true. I can't believe that's true. If we'd be looking at a situation where David Raya is available and we know for what price, and he's agreed personal terms with Spurs, and we are chasing Jordan Pickford instead, again, that will make me sick. Physically sick. A lot will. Craig says, statute of limitations had expired on most charges, so UEFA had to drop them. But no such statute of limitations exist in Premier League, so Premier League went after them instead. That is true as well. Remember, with the UEFA charge, is they essentially got off on a technicality, because as Craig is saying, they said, statute of limitations had expired. So it wasn't even necessarily a declaration of innocence as well. It was a declaration of, well, it happened too long ago, we can't charge you anymore. So again, that sums up UEFA too. So as far as do I have any hope of City actually being punished, the answer would probably be no. And we also as a club can't go through our existence, because who knows how long that legal battle is going to remain for. We can't go through our existence going, eventually justice will prevail, and we stand still and we do nothing. We have to also, as I mentioned, look at ourselves. We have to even compete with the teams that aren't cheating too. That's part of it as well. I've also just been informed for United View members. If you are a member of the EB Members Club, remember you can join. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat. We know that we've got 10 new members already in the stream from VK. A new episode of UV Raw, a behind-the-scenes look at the day-to-day goings-on here at United View, will be going live after the end of this show. So if you haven't already and you do want to be a part of that, in addition to you get your badges, your emojis, and other exclusive members-only content, that will be happening after we are finished here as well in about 25 minutes or so. So again, if you haven't already, you can join the Members Club, links in the video description too. If you are just joining us, because we still do have over 1,800 of you joining in this afternoon, the latest update when it comes to the Takeover news is that there is a understanding, or there is reports and rumours that we are going to be getting a decision regarding which bidder for Manchester United is going to be deemed or going into exclusivity in terms of the next 7 days. That is the reports coming from the likes of Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail and also from the Times. Once again, just to catch you guys all up if you are just tuning in, because I know some people tune in and they say, what's going on? What's going on? Because they'll just see the thumbnail and go, Owen, what's happening? So again, just to catch you all up, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim are finalising deal details with the club sellers, that being the Rain Group, with a long-awaited decision on exclusivity finally expected later this week. Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe are both hoping to learn over the coming days which has been chosen by the Glazer family as the preferred bidder for Manchester United. This is all coming from Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail. We'll get into the Times one in just a second. Once again, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's people from Ineos had been in advanced talks with Rain for a number of weeks, but insiders have disclosed that there was something of a breakthrough with Sheikh Jassim after his latest bid. That latest bid was put in earlier this week, believed to be early this week. Of course, his fifth bid throughout a 3-round process. His fifth bid. The Friday deadline for a withdrawal of engagement in the process has passed, but the offer, which was made directly to the Glazers and to Rain, remains on the table. What is quite interesting is they haven't said too much. I know Ben Jacobs did touch on this the other day, that because that deadline of Friday had passed, that Sheikh Jassim was no longer going to engage in talks, but that isn't necessarily what is being said here, because they're also saying that the 9-2 Foundation are now have this renewed sense of optimism because of talks with the Glazers and Rain over the last 72 hours. So that would suggest that actually that reporting that they were going to disengage maybe isn't totally accurate, because if you're getting close, if you're having talks with the people you're trying to buy United from over the last 3 days and you deem them as really positive, just because you've placed a deadline on Friday, that means, well, I said Friday, so I'm not going to talk to you anymore. If you feel like you're getting close, you're going to continue, aren't you? You're going to continue with those discussions. As I mentioned, the Times are also saying that Ineos have been in advanced talk with Rain, prompting the Qataris to believe they had lost. However, there is a renewed sense of optimism in the past 72 hours, fueled by dialogue with the Glazers and their representatives towards the end of the week. So because of what has been going on the last 72 hours, the last few days, the 9-2 Foundation believe that, again, they have not lost, and they are now optimistic about their bid, which again is reported to be closer to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's valuation of Manchester United. Again, I think that's a key bit too, saying that Ratcliffe's overall valuation of Manchester United being higher is what established him and Ineos as favourites previously. However, this increased bid by Sheikh Jassim is now believed to be clearer to the overall Ratcliffe valuation. So really, the decision hinges on, certainly from what the 9-2 Foundation believe, is the decision from the Glazers of, do they want to stay or don't they want to stay? And what do you guys think? Where are we headed with this one? Actually, first of all, I suppose it's a two pronged a question, isn't it? Here, the first one is: do you genuinely believe, in your heart of hearts, that, as the reports are saying, within the next 7 days, next week, do you believe next week is genuinely going to be the week in which we find out who's going to enter exclusivity? Do you believe we are going to get that confirmation, or certainly we're going to get that report next week of either Ineos are in exclusivity or the 9-2 Foundation are going to be in exclusivity? I'll wait for your response for that first, and then I'll ask the next one, which is, I've asked this next question quite a lot, but I'll wait to see your response to that. You've got Nick saying no, Splashnet saying no, Manish saying no, Kimmy says yes, TJ says yes, Skiliano says no, Mike says nope, TJ says yes, Simon says blind hope, Keegan says no, G-Dad says no, Kimmy says Qatar will be confirmed next week, Anish says hell no, Svante says no, Luxil says there's no smoke without fire, so I say yes. Quite a lot of no's, but a sprinkling of yeses in there as well. What do I think? As I mentioned earlier on when I started, I'm always going to be skeptical when anyone puts any kind of date on this, because we've had so many dates put on this saga, and that's what it is, a saga. And we've had so many dates put on it and so many deadlines. April. So remember, at one point I think it was March, April, end of the season, FA Cup final, all of which has come and gone with nothing, with absolute nothing. It's been a process that has gone at, I can't even say a snail's pace, because a snail's pace is like Usain Bolt with how quickly this thing has gone. It's been tedious, it's been demoralizing, it's been draining, and I am skeptical, but I do believe that within the next 7 days, do I believe we're going to find out who enters exclusivity? You know what, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that I think we do. I think we do get into exclusivity within the next 7 days. My rationale for that is just because in the last week with this, a lot has happened, and a lot of posturing, more posturing than normal, has gone on. We've had ultimatums, we've had stories of contacts a month ago, we've had people leading the race, and now people getting back close within the race. My feeling is, and we did say this before, that we are entering the end game. Now, how long the end game is, sometimes it can be pretty long and too long, but I do feel like this is heading towards a conclusion. I do, and I think, as much as the Glazers are trying to just squeeze every nickel and dime out of this club that they can, and every nickel and dime out of this takeover bid that they can, I think if that reporting is true about them reaching out to the PSG president Nasir Alkalafi to try and get Sheikh Jassim to increase his bid, and this was a month ago, I think probably even they realise that they've come very, very close to maybe pissing off the guy that they actually want to sell the club to, or certainly the guy that they know they can get the most money out of immediately. And I think maybe that might have concerned them or worried them, because you don't, as we said before, if they genuinely thought they were going to give it to Ineos, or certainly they were going to sell the majority of their majority to Ineos, they wouldn't be reaching out to a middleman to try and broker peace or broker an improved bid or more money going in, because they would say, well, this guy isn't giving us what we wanted. This guy always undervalued the bid in terms of what we want, so we're going to go with this person because their value is closer to what we're looking for. So they would go with him. People don't do that, again, if they've already found their preferred bidder. And maybe this last offer, and again, remember, this new bid went in earlier this week, Since then, a lot has happened. Since then, a lot has happened in terms of the media stuff, developments, people talking about it, getting closer to an end game. So my feeling is that, again, within this next 7 days, I do think we'll get exclusivity. And I'm not going to say which one I think it's going to be because I still genuinely don't know. But there does feel like, doesn't there, that there is something going on with it at this point. And frankly, maybe it is hope. Maybe I am smoking on the hopium again and drinking the copium. The sirens are going off, which, to be honest, 45 minutes in is a pretty good going for me. But maybe it is just hope. I just want this thing to be over. As I mentioned, this thing needs to be over. United need to move on, regardless of what direction we go in. We need to move on. So that was part one. That was part one of my question. Do we think we are going to get exclusivity in the next 7 days? And still, I would probably say the majority of you are saying no, but some are saying yes. So the next part will be, after today's developments, and I guess factoring in this week's developments as well, regarding the fifth bid going in, regarding still the report suggesting that Ineos were the front runners, but then obviously the Alkalafi drama, and then today the reporting that actually it's neck and neck, and Ineos were leading the race, but maybe now they're not. And as Laurie Whitwell had said, the latest offer from Sheikh Jassim is said to be significant, and this latest offer is said to be much closer to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's overall valuation of Manchester United as well. So clearly he has significantly upped his bid. Because of that, where do you think this is going to go? Who do you think is going to win this race? I know I ask this every stream, but every stream we get new information, and every stream it feels like it's going in a different direction. So as of right now, where do you think this one is headed? Is it headed towards an Ineos majority-owned Manchester United, or is it headed towards a 9-2 Foundation complete total ownership of Manchester United? Where do you think this is headed? I will put a poll in the chat, but let me know your comments as well, because I'll get your comments up on the screen. So the question is, who wins the Man United takeover race? Question mark. Is it Sheikh Jassim, or is it Sir Jim Ratcliffe? And again, I know that's a repetitive question because I know I ask it all the time, but it is interesting because, again, when the information changes, I think it changes quite a lot of people's perception about where this one is headed. So the poll is officially in the chat, so you can get your votes in. And remember, it's what you think, not what you want. I know I always say that, and then people say what they want anyway, but it's what you think. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. SQ says Qatar, Hanif says Qatar, Lee Richard says Qatar only, SQ says Qatar, Danish says Qatar, True Mancunian with the Qatari flag, Brian says Qatar, Jeanette says Qatar in, Dave says 9-2, Ineos wouldn't materially change much in terms of the business. Lots of people saying that they think Qatar's going to do it now. They do. Lil Yo-Yo says, today I feel Qatari. Steph, big up Steph. I can see Steph in there, says KG. Well, I think KG, as the owner of Manchester United, might be the worst outcome for everyone involved. We would get dividends and taken out, not for anything business related. He would take out the dividends for the new hairline. That's what he would do. He'd be that, and that would cost a lot. We don't. I mean, there's Qatari money and then there's KG money. I mean, KG money, we might run afoul of FFP or something like that. We don't need that. Luxil says if it was gonna be Ineos, it would have happened months ago. Which again, is kind of what I was talking about earlier, and that's always been my feeling with Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, is that if they were leading and if they were close, remember the report suggesting that Ineos had been leading this race had been going on for what? When did that first report come out suggesting that Ineos were leading the race? Was that like 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe even longer than that, something like that? And at the time they said, oh yeah, they're leading because their bid values United more and they believe they're the front runners. Well, why did nothing happen for like a month? Why did nothing happen for maybe a month and a half, however long it's been? And they've been constantly, we're still talking to Rain, trying to figure out the complexities of it. if they were if they were leading that race and the Glazers truly wanted to sell to them, they could have entered into exclusivity a long time ago. But as the report has suggested, they've still constantly been trying to get more money out of Sheikh Jassim, which would suggest to me that there's only one person that they actually want to sell to, or believe they think is the right choice to sell to, which is the 9-2 Foundation, because that's the path that offers them the most money right now, and a significant amount of money. Their only real point of contention with Sheikh Jassim has been that he hasn't been willing to give them the money that they're looking for, and now we might be at a point where actually it's got a lot closer, so maybe a compromise has been or will be reached certainly soon. Because that's not to necessarily say that whilst the ultimatum was put out there, and that, Friday after Friday I disengaged, this is my final bid. As I mentioned before, kind of one of my predictions was that the Glazers would go back to him and say, look, mate, you are this far away. You are really, really close. Can we agree on you putting in 200 more million in, or 300 more million in? Then we agree. Then we've got it. Then we've got a deal. And maybe that's what happens when they enter into exclusivity. Maybe that's what happens then when they say, right, we're happy with that. We're happy that you're closer, and we do think at this point that we're going to reach an agreement, but we just need to maybe tweak a few things and get things done. You could argue another obviously positive with the Sheikh Jassim bid is that he wants to get this done quickly, and part of the reason for putting in that fifth bid was, again, out of frustration, that he said, look, the transfer window's opening up next week. Stuff needs to be done. Stuff that can be done immediately needs to be done, i.e. spending on players, backing the manager, entering the transfer market. That needs to be done now because other clubs are starting to do it, and United they're behind anyway. Look what happened in Istanbul yesterday, but stuff needs to get done. So if they do enter into exclusivity next week with the 9-2 Foundation, then logically you would suggest that actually the whole process could be completed fairly quickly. With Ineos, because of the level of complexity involved there, that might take a little bit longer. But that's not to say, actually, in fairness with Sheikh Jassim, that, as had been reported by David Ornstein, when was that? Yesterday? Day before that? I forget. The days are blurring into one with this takeover stuff at the moment. But David Ornstein did say that because of a concern from Premier League clubs and extra scrutiny from Premier League clubs, the thing that might delay or hold this sale up is that the Premier League would want proof of funding. They would want evidence to where the money is coming from. So to display that Sheikh Jassim is indeed a private individual and the money is not coming from a state level and it's not a state-backed bid. But at the same time, last night, Manchester City's owner attended only his second game. Since owning Manchester City, his second game, and again, he's also a private individual. That definitely isn't a stake-back bid. That's worth pointing out. Definitely not. Definitely not. He's a private individual. So that would probably be what the Premier League might be looking for, and maybe that might take a little bit of time too. So there might be delays on either side, but at the same time, as I mentioned, my feeling on that is that, as I mentioned, Pandora's box has been opened with that. You've got Newcastle, who are owned, at least the majority ownership is from the Saudi PIF, and whilst they can say that the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has got nothing to do with Newcastle, it's a sovereign wealth fund. Of course the money is coming from him. Everyone knows that. They can sign something to the effect of suggesting that it isn't, but everyone knows what's going on there. In the same way that everyone knows what's going on at Man City too. But stuff has been signed, and I think the Premier League would find it very difficult to not sanction a Manchester United takeover from Sheikh Jassim because of those concerns when you've got two prime examples of that already happening in the Premier League. That would be the problem. There's precedent to allow that deal to happen. And even that, when you think about it, because part of that report from David Ornstein on Friday was that that's part of a reason that the Glazers were reluctant to sell to the 9-2 Foundation because of the scrutiny involved and because of the potential delays that the Premier League could put on it. And I kind of at the same time went, come on, that's just silly. Because when you look at the Newcastle takeover, how that happened, actually once all the green lights were given, were allowed of that, that happened fairly quickly. It was a long protracted out saga, but that was something else, not to do with was it broadcasting rights or something that with BN Sports, I believe it was, or something like that. So there's an argument to be made again that the 9-2 Foundation takeover bid could get done, fairly quickly. So Certainly it's going to be an interesting week ahead, no doubt about that. We've got over 2,200 people watching. So if you haven't already, click that like button. We're over 500 likes. We can get to 750. Easy. We can get to 750. So if you haven't already, click that like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. As you can see, actually, we haven't really done this before on United View, as far as I can recall, because you can't always see the subscriber thing when you're live and you're doing a million different things. But let's see if we can get to 141,600 subscribers, because you can see the number. You can see the number up on the screen. It's just changed. We are 20 subscribers away from 141,600. So statistically, there would be 20 non-subscribers watching this right now. So if you're a non-subscriber, click the subscribe button and let's see if we can move that 5 to a 6. We haven't been able to do that before here on the channel, so that could be fun. Not only we've got subscriber targets as well. Oh, that'll be very interesting. So again, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button too. And we're 5 likes away from 600 in terms of the likes too. So we're already on 600. Look at this. We're rising. Oh, it's exciting times, and I think certainly it's going to be a very exciting week. My only hope with this is that, one, we actually do get an announcement either way this coming week on Exclusivity, whether it is Sheikh Jassim or whether it is Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because again, we need to move on. And I just hope that we don't have a situation that we've had so many times in this takeover whereby we're going, today's the day. We're gonna find out today. Today's the day we're gonna find out. We are going to find out today that Exclusivity is going to happen, and then today comes and goes and nothing happens. And we then are still sitting there twiddling our thumbs again, going, well, maybe it's tomorrow. Maybe it'll be later on. Maybe it will be after that. I can't. That plus transfers, I just can't deal with. Manchester United in the transfer window is bad enough with monitoring, interest, talks, being linked to players that we're not getting because agents are trying to drive it. That's one thing. But the takeover thing as well, I don't know if I could deal with that, honestly. I really don't. Let me just double check to see if there's any more updates regarding this. So, again, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any more updates in terms of reporting since that article came out from Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail and the Times. As always, I'm sure that this story, particularly now that there is somewhat of a green light as to possibly expect exclusivity. I don't even know how they'd announce this too, because is this a situation that would be reported? Do Manchester United make an announcement in terms of we have entered exclusivity? We've entered into exclusivity of with the 9-2 Foundation, or entered exclusivity with Ineos? Is that something that they would announce, or like anything, is that something that is just going to be reported? I don't actually know. I really don't know if that what would happen with that. By the way, we're only four away from 141,600. That for me would see something that would be significant. So would that have to be announced? And from a New York Stock Exchange point of view, you would think that is something that they have to actually announce to shareholders, as Lil Yo-Yo's just said. Exactly. Paul Greaves says New York Stock Exchange first. Lil Yo-Yo says technically they would make an announcement as to inform it to its shareholders. Absolutely, you would think they would have to. They absolutely would have to. So. That would be interesting too. And if that announcement was to be made, then that would come fairly early on in the day, because the stock exchange opens in the afternoon over here. So you would maybe that announcement might come from there first. So that would be interesting too. And either way, it affects the shareholders in different ways, isn't it? Of course, because if it is Ineos, it's the Glazers' majority shareholding that is being. The exclusivity is entering into, or if it's the 9-2 Foundation, that really affects the shareholders, because they're saying that not only are we accepting an offer for our shares in United, we're also, this guy's going to buy you out as well. So that's certainly significant too. We're one away. Look, it's gone down. Oh, it's continued to go down. That's a disgrace. It's a cheat. It's one of those moments. We're also, in terms of likes, we're on we're 50 away from 700. I don't know if it's going to get there now. I feel like it's not. It's going to be one of those things. I remember seeing, when you see those people when they get to 1 million. And then they film themselves. They go, thanks for getting to 1 million. And it goes boom, 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 boom. It's like, oh, it's a disgrace. It's a cheat. So there you go. As I mentioned, guys, there is going to be a... we did it! And now it's going to go down again. It's going to go down again. I know it is. Oh, that's why I've got to wrap up quickly. I've got to wrap up quickly. And I did. That's true. That's true. Luxil said, I did promise that we would hit watch paint drying with you. I said that it was like watching paint dry, and I said Paint View would come tomorrow, and that's exactly that. Welcome to Paint View. I said I'd be like Bob Ross, and I'd be painting here. But big up to the UV community as well. Big up for tuning in for this impromptu afternoon live stream talking about the United Takeover decision. As I mentioned, this will be, I'm sure, an ongoing saga. Well, obviously it's going to be an ongoing saga over the next 7 days or so. So whenever we get a new bit of news as well, we'll be going live here. Oh, see, I knew. I knew it was gonna happen. I just knew it. I knew it was gonna happen. Yes, if we get any more information, we'll be live here on the channel. Certainly a video will go up regarding it. I don't know if that will be this evening. I probably doubt it, because I think that I would think this would probably be it for the information for today. Nevertheless, if we're not back later on this evening, or something happens later on this evening, we'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. As always, the transfer view with Flex and myself tomorrow. Full view as well will be coming out as well. It's going to be really interesting to see what everyone thinks about the latest takeover developments and sagas. Full panel. That's going to be fascinating too. And then, as I mentioned, just throughout the week, stay tuned. These new subscribers, click the notification bell, because I get the impression we're going to be going live very quickly at the drop of a hat as well. So that's going to be fascinating too. Hit the like button on the way out too, because we're at 700 likes. See if we can get to 750. As I mentioned, new members and existing members of the UV Members Club, a new episode of UV Raw is going to be out. If it's not out right now, it's going to be coming out in the next few seconds and minutes, so you can check out that as well. I'm out of it. Have a great Sunday. Have a great rest of your weekend. And maybe, you never know, I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.